सल्ले अला मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। जब गर्दनें झुकी हो तो सर काटते हैं लोग। My sisters, I humbly request if you are leaving, kindly do so as quietly as possible so not to disrupt the program as Majalis is about to begin. And this is for my Urdu speaking brothers and sisters. जब गर्दनें झुकी हो तो सर काटते हैं लोग। जब गर्दनें झुकी हो तो सर काटते हैं लोग। झुकता नहीं वो सर जो सदा सरफराज हो। सर काटना अली का तो मुमकिन ही नहीं था। सर काटना अली का तो मुमकिन ही नहीं था। कातिल भी मुंतजिर था कि वक्ते नमाज हो। बिसार सलावत अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद। Brothers and sisters, we will have a short presentation before we start the Majalis for who is Hussain. For the presentation, please welcome Brother Wali Rizvi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. And Shahriz Khavri. Recite another salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Respected scholars, my brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shahriz Khavri, this is Wali Rizvi, and today we are presenting in order to fundraise for our annual back to school drive and marking this year as the 10th year of this particular cause. At Hussain, we believe in the timeless message of standing against oppression and advocating for human dignity. The message of Imam Hussain alayhi salam lives on. In this slide, I wanted to share some of the remarkable initiatives undertaken by the organization over the years. In 2013, we launched the Billboards project to propagate the name and message of Imam Hussain alayhi salam to the residents of Chicago. In 2019, the organization held a free dental care day providing essential dental services to those in need. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit in 2020, Hussain stepped up by distributing face masks for the public. And in 2022, we also participated in the Hussain annual blood drive on a global scale. Across 27 countries and over 350 venues, the campaign broke the world's record for the most blood donations in one calendar day. Every year, Hussain also commits to several annual events such as the Back to School Drive, which I'll be talking more about, the annual winter drive, which we were able to provide 200 units of packages this winter for the homeless and needy, the semi-annual Cornerstone Soup Kitchen, where members of our team and volunteers from Baitul Ilm, IZ Hussaini, and Sega Roots came together to cook hot meals for the homeless. And lastly, different collaborative events with institutions across the board. Here is a short clip showcasing the work done over the years for this event, the Back to School Drive.
Community service group Who is Hussain and the organization Who is Hussain teamed up with 4th Ward Alderman Sophia King and other local leaders to hand out masks.
Today, dozens are here, volunteering their time, putting together 1,200. Today, 350 backpacks filled with supplies are being assembled for CBS students.
Scissor, glue, sketch pad, notepad,
markers and calculators.
26, around 1,600 of them will receive the year's worth of free school supplies, all packed by volunteers this morning at A. Philip Randolph School.
We'll be here again next year for our 10th annual. So these will be going to those students who really could use just a little bit of an extra hand in order to really make the most of their education this school year.
The average income in Inglewood is probably like $20,000 a year.
We know that the students at TPS need these types of supplies, and we want to be able to give to them despite the circumstances.
I'm so thankful, but for those who are looking to contribute to organizations such as Who is Hussain, please reach out to them and give funding so that we can continue to provide more students, more schools, and families with resources that children need to be successful.
Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala
With the main topic in hand, I wanted to briefly share the story of this event and how it came to fruition. During the 2016 Ummah conference in Chicago, Hussain global team had a workshop with a goal in mind to brainstorm some solutions for the city of Detroit, where local schools were struggling to make ends meet. During this workshop, one of the members of the Chicago team shared the basic idea of packing up school supplies in a backpack and delivering it to them. Thus, the fruition of this event. Between the year 2016 and 2017, with the joint effort of Baitul Ilm and IEC Hussaini, we were able to start packaging from 150 to 250 units per year. Following that, from the years 2018 to 2024, we were able to push the pedals and package 1,200 and 1,600 units per year. Today, we stand at our 10th annual drive with the goal of providing school supplies for up to 2,000 kids. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We decided to target the lowest income communities in the city of Chicago, as you can see in the income map on the right. Our target public schools are those within the red lines, which happen to be in the Englewood area. This year marks a decade of dedication in empowering children in low-income communities in the Chicagoland area in the name of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. For the past 10 years, Hussain has provided essential school supplies for thousands of kids, helping them start the school year with confidence and dignity. As we celebrate this milestone, our goal is to provide, again, 2,000 units of school supplies, and which will be our largest distribution to date. This graph here shows our past accomplishments and the exposure we have gotten for this event, and where inshallah we plan to be in 2025. To summarize the accomplishments of this event, we have had about 11,000 backpacks delivered to date, 15 TV media reports, 3 radio reports, acknowledgements from the city and county officials. Now for the fun part. For this event, we are fundraising $36,000, which is the estimated amount needed to accomplish this monumental task. To be able to donate, you can either write a check to Hussain Chicago Non-for-Profit at the given address at the site, or at the slide, Zelle to the email above, or PayPal to the address given. For further questions, you can reach out to Faraz Hussain, Narjis Hussain, Willie Rizvi, or myself. Thank you all for their time, and let's end this with one loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
MashaAllah, great volunteers, and they have seen some amazing growth in the last 10 years. Let's recite a loud salawat for their success, sehat, salamti, and barakat, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, ali Muhammad. शुरू यहाँ से हुई करबल की बात है, शुरू यहाँ से हुई करबल की बात है, हैदर के ज़रब लग गई दिन स्याह रात है, वक्ते असर शबीर ने की नमाज जो अदा, वक्ते असर शबीर ने की नमाज जो अदा, कूफे में उस नमाज की पहली रकात है. I now would like to welcome Brother Shafqat Shah to please come forward and recite Salam and Marsiya in the honor of Ahl Bayt. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
Baradigar Hadiya Salawat. अब तो ज़ैनब कलाम कर मुझसे, अब तो ज़ैनब कलाम कर मुझसे, आज बाबा ने लौट जाना है, حشر تک اب تیری ضمانت میں میرا مقصد میرا گھرانہ ہے اب تو زینب کلام کر مجھ سے مجھ کو زینب معاف کر دینا تیرے زخموں کا ایک سبب میں ہوں تیرے زخموں کا ایک سبب میں ہوں میری ہر ضرب اس کے بدلے شامیوں نے تجھے رلانا ہے اب تو زینب کلام کر مجھ سے سب کے اشکوں کو پہنچنے والی تیرے آنسو کوئی نہ پہنچے گا تیرے آنسو کوئی نہ پہنچے گا میرے بیٹے تو دین بچائیں گے تو نے زینب انہیں بچانا ہے اب تو زینب کلام کر مجھ سے جو خواتین آج کوفے میں تجھ سے قرآن پڑھنے آتی ہیں تجھ سے قرآن پڑھنے آتی ہیں سنگ ماریں کہ کل یہی تجھ کو باغ کہہ کر تجھے بلانا ہے اب تو زینب کلام کر مجھ سے جو خواتین آج کوفے میں تجھ سے قرآن پڑھنے آتی ہیں تجھ سے قرآن پڑھنے آتی ہیں سنگ ماریں گی کل یہی تجھ کو باغی کہہ کر تجھے بلانا ہے اب تو زینب کلام کر مجھ سے تیری جانب जो हाथ बढ़ते हैं देखता हूँ कि उनमें पत्थर है देखता हूँ कि उनमें पत्थर हैं जिनमें पत्थर नजर नहीं आए उनमें शोले हैं ताज़ियाना है अब तो ज़ैनब कलाम कर मुझसे सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मोहम्मद बारह दीगर हदीस सल्लल्लाहु यूं रो रहे हैं देख के ज़ैनब को मुर्तज़ा यूं रो रहे हैं देख के ज़ैनब को मुर्तज़ा शायद ख़याल आया है बाज़ार शाम का यूं रो रहे हैं देख के ज़ैनब को मुर्तज़ा ज़ैनब के थे ये बैत मदीने चलो हुसैन ज़ैनब के थे ये बैत मदीने चलो हुसैन कूफा हमारे रहने के काबिल नहीं रहा यूं रो रहे हैं देख के ज़ैनब को मुर्तज़ा सज्जाद बैन करते हैं दादा हैं खुश नसीब सज्जाद बैन करते हैं दादा हैं खुश नसीब बेटों ने मिल के बाप को गुस्लो कफन दिया यूं रो रहे हैं देख के ज़ैनब को मुर्तज़ा ज़ैनब न रो अभी मुझे आ जाएगा सुकून ज़ैनब न रो अभी मुझे आ जाएगा सुकून रुमाल ला के बांध दो सर पर बतूल का यूं रो रहे हैं देख के ज़ैनब को मुर्तज़ा मौला क्यों खाक आपने ڈالی ہے زخم پر مولا کیوں خاک آپ نے ڈالی ہے زخم پر کیا یاد آ گئی ہے مصلی پہ کربلا یوں رو رہے ہیں دیکھ کے زینب کو مرتضیٰ دربار شام جاؤں گا زینب میں تیرے ساتھ دربار شام جاؤں گا زینب میں تیرے ساتھ اکبر یہ کہہ کے ہو گئے خاموش مرتضیٰ یوں رو رہے ہیں دیکھ کے زینب کو مرتضیٰ صلوات محمد وآل محمد
Jazakallah Shafkat bhai. May Ahle Bayt alayhi salam accept your pursa. Recite a loud salawat for him. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad. دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں دو بار نماز شہید ہوئی ایک مسجد میں ایک مقتل میں قرآن لہو میں تر دیکھا ایک کوفے میں ایک کربل میں I now request Hujjatul Islam Maulana Reza Hemyari to please come to the member and address the Majalis. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين إنه خير ناصر ومعين ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سيما بقية الله في الأراضين وحجته على الخلق أجمعين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يؤتي الحكمة من يشاء ومن يؤت الحكمة فقد أوتي خيرا كثيرا وما يذكر إلا أولو الألباب صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوا على محمد وآله الطاهرين
اللهم صل على محمد.
Dear brothers and sisters, Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Last night we talked about this ayah of the Quran and the tafsir of this ayah that is given by the Ahlul Bayt, this ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah in which Allah mentions that يُؤْتِ الْحِكْمَةَ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. He gives to whoever He wills hikmah, or wisdom. And whoever is given that hikmah, that wisdom, that discernment, then indeed they have received something very great. In the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt, in particular Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, the Imam says that this hikmah that is mentioned in this ayah, this is ta'atullah wa ma'rifatul imam. This is the obedience of Allah and the knowledge and the recognition and the understanding of the Imam. Last night we mentioned just one dimension of what it means to have ma'rifatul imam. That the Imam, beginning with the Prophet of Allah, Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, presents the principles upon which Islam, the religion of God, and the revelation from God are established. And from those principles we establish our own lives and we order our own lives and our values. And then the Prophet comes and he creates a community, an ummah, based on those principles. That's principle ultimately of taqwa, of our relationship with Allah. And then the Ahlul Bayt, the Imams, they come after the Prophet and they explain and they describe and they detail for the Muslims what those principles look like after the Prophet has passed. They expand on the principles that the Prophet taught. But unfortunately, the principles are not enough. We mentioned that our series of talks are going to be about how to live a good life. And sometimes in our lives we notice that principles will conflict. And we will notice in particular, for those of us who are a little bit more principled, a little bit more religious as much as we try, that our principles sometimes conflict to such an extent that we stop knowing how to live our lives. Sometimes for religious people, if we interact with them enough, and even not our own religion, but people from other religions, we see that their lives are almost like caricatures. We've seen these caricatures, these drawings, right? Sometimes the head is very big and the body is very small. When they draw the eyes, they're huge, and the mouth is tiny. The body does not match. The principles do not fit an appropriate and a good life. And so sometimes we become overly aggressive because we are trying to do our ibadah. Or we become too distant because the people around us do not live up to our practice or our values. And so we have to distance ourselves from other people. Or we might, if we are not that principled, we might even become sort of fearful of people who are more principled. And so when we look in our own lives, we have to try to figure out, first of all, what those principles are. We have to understand Islam is based upon ibadah and our relationship with Allah, but that relationship sometimes requires me to also have a good relationship with the creation of God. And so my ibadah should not come in the way of my relationship, for example, with my family, or my relationship with my community. I mentioned last night that, or a couple nights ago, that we have two principles mentioned in Surah Luqman. The first principle is that you should not do shirk of God, associate partners unto God. That is the ultimate principle. Tawheed is the very basis of our religion and the religion of the Prophet of Allah. Cannot do shirk, associate partners, call others unto God. On the other hand, right in the next verse, Allah says that you have to honor your parents. And this is one of the important principles that the Quran emphasizes throughout the Quran, right after highlighting the principle of Tawheed. But then sometimes these two come in conflict. And so in ayah number 15, Allah says, if your parents push you towards doing shirk, towards not just the explicit sort of shirk, but even disobeying Allah. وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. If these two principles come in conflict, then Allah mentions the more important principle, the principle that takes priority over the other. If your parents, if authority figures in our lives, whether it is in our households or otherwise, if they come and tell us to do shirk of Allah, then we don't have to obey those commands. But then Allah in this verse, He does not say, okay, now that they have told you to do shirk, then you can just totally disregard their command or their wants or their needs. Rather, Allah says, stick to the principles as best as you can, even in those times of conflict. So still honor them. Don't disregard their wants. Maybe what they want is your respect. And so still respect them in the matters of this world. And then if they turn back unto Allah, then obey them and follow their practice. And so Allah, He as well, He teaches us that your principles will sometimes even conflict. Just to illustrate how important this point is, I know we have this question of AI comes in quite a bit these days. And about, for example, when we have machine learning and you can input all of the information into a computer, can they give you the answers that back in the day you would rely on a human being for? So for example, there is a question about, do you need a marja or a person who gives fatwa, or can you give all of the information to a computer and then that computer can give you the proper fatwa? Has all of the information, all of the facts that even a human being could not possibly remember or possibly know. Will that computer give you a better answer to your question, or will, for example, a marja? This is, I know we have some AI experts in the room. I don't want to go beyond my pay grade, but this is a question that some people have. Now, the question really stems from a different question. And that is information enough? Are facts that we can acquire, or even that are beyond our capacity, that a machine, a computer can acquire, are those facts enough to be able to decide for us how to live our lives? If you were to constantly be asking questions from a fact machine, put all of the information into a computer, our lives will become lives based on principles, on those facts, on that information. And then we will get those caricatures, those big heads and those small bodies, those lives that are distant from other people, that are atomized and that are instrumentalized for particular ends. We won't have good lives, in other words, because our lives are based on facts. In particular, when these facts come in conflict, when those principles come in conflict. One of those cases that is mentioned by Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, the Imam says, لا قربة بالنوافل إذا أضرت بالفرائض. We're trying to figure out how to live a good life, and sometimes we get things mixed up. I want to, for example, do good for my family. I want to go and work as much as I can so that I can build a large house for my family. Or, for example, I want to do the best ibadah that I could possibly do, and I do worship night and day. And then all of a sudden, after a few years, I find out that all of those people that I held dear and I have a responsibility towards, those people are feeling distant from me and they don't really want to be around me. On the one hand, I'm doing ibadah, I'm doing all of my mustahabbat, all of my nawafil, but then on the other hand, I have a farida, a responsibility towards my family, and I have forsaken that responsibility. So I might have a large house, but that house might be empty. I might have the best practice Islamically, but then I don't have anyone around me that I can care for. My family is distant, and they have grown up and they have moved away. The Imam says that any type of nawafil, any mustahab act that you might do, if it comes in conflict with a responsibility that you have, then that nafilah that you are doing, that does not bring you closer to Allah. Because your priority should be with your responsibilities. Fulfill your responsibilities and then you can do extra things. Get your priorities straight. I shouldn't just be, for example, always in the masjid. And then I find out that my home is getting more distant from me. Sometimes, actually most times maybe, that's not the issue. Right? Most times we aren't in the masjid enough. And the masjid is empty. That is also another responsibility. It is, if we have a working, a sort of beautiful masjid in our area, then the masjid has a responsibility towards me as well. And so I should populate that masjid. I should frequent that masjid, because on the day of judgment, that masjid will be a witness against me that these people who lived in my area, they left me all alone. And they did not come to me to worship. You have to figure out those priorities. But let's go back to our example again. I believe, again, for those who are experts in this field, you can even figure out how to organize those priorities. So for example, you can say that the highest priority is Tawheed. The second level priority is honoring your parents. The third level priority is, for example, this, fourth this, fifth this, and so on. So even in moments of conflict, that machine might be able to tell me that this is the right answer. It's possible. Again, we can discuss this after the talk. But I imagine you can tell a machine that this is the highest priority and then this is the next set. So then, what is the difference? How do we make a case for human beings to make those choices? For human beings to be able to decide what is the best approach and the best decision in this situation. And for this, again, we look at the Ahlul Bayt. Again, hikmah, wisdom, the Imam does not say it comes from facts. He says, he doesn't even say it comes from knowledge. He says, ta'atullah wa ma'rifatul imam. a person, a human being that Allah has chosen, who makes decisions in his life based on that taqwa and that ma'rifah that Allah has given to that person. So that person is using the knowledge and the intellect that God has bestowed him with. That perfect intellect that God has given him to make those decisions in his life. Yesterday we focused on the concept of an imam. Today I want to talk about the decisions of a particular imam. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And those decisions in a particular human being's life, those are decisions that cannot be defined or limited to particular facts. Because an imam understands that his situation has a particular context. When we live in our own lives, there are an almost infinite number of decisions that we have to make in an individual situation. And that you cannot just divide them into facts and into information. Let me just give you a couple examples. First is our own selves, our own souls, where we are in our journey towards Allah. A lot of times we might find ourselves to be very spiritual and full of energy to do worship of Allah. In those moments when I feel full of energy and full of taqwa, inshallah, may Allah bless us with even more of those moments in our lives. That when we turn towards Allah, our heart is aware and it is conscious of Allah. When I begin to read the Quran, it's almost as though the words are speaking to me. When I am standing up in prayer, it is almost as though I am speaking to Allah with the purest of hearts and the purest of intentions. And those moments, those are moments of grace and blessing that Allah has given us. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali, he says that there are moments in your life, إِنَّ الْقُلُوبَ إِقْبَالًا وَإِدْبَارًا. Our hearts will have moments where we are going forward and then they are holding us back. فَإِذَا أَقْبَلَتْ فَأَحْمِلُوهَا عَلَى النَّوَافِلِ وَإِذَا أَدْبَرَتْ فَاقْتَصِرُوا بِهَا عَلَى الْفَرَائِضِ. There are going to be moments in your life when you feel like your heart wants to just rush forward and do worship of Allah. In those moments, I mentioned this, when there's conflict, moments of conflict between nawafil and fara'id come up, we have to prioritize our fara'id. In this hadith, Imam Ali says, when you feel like your heart is ready for it, then increase in your nawafil. Do as many nawafil as possible. Not just salat, but other types of good deeds. Give as much charity as you can. Spend as much time with your family as you can, with your community, and so on. Read as much Quran as possible. But when you feel like your heart is not ready, when you are tired, when you are distracted, and so on, just stick to the fara'id. Stick to your basic responsibilities. The Imam is basically telling us that figure out your particular spiritual situation, how you feel in that moment. Don't disregard your fara'id, your basic responsibilities, but then when you feel like you have the energy and the time, do a little bit of extra. Push yourself forward. And this is Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And this is in line with another hadith of our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, in which he says, إِنَّكَ قَدْ جُعِلْتَ طَبِيبَ نَفْسِكَ. You have been made the doctor of your own heart. When you go to your doctor, You're supposed to tell them all of your symptoms and then maybe even some of your habits. They will ask you, for example, are you a smoker? Are you, for example, do you have these habits? And maybe these habits will lead to these symptoms and so on and so forth. Just as a quick note, when you ask an istifta from for a fatwa, you should generally do the same thing. Don't just ask, for example, is Hajj wajib or is Salat wajib? Because the answer is going to be yes or it's going to be no and so on. Give as much information that is relevant as possible. Don't say, irrelevant information, but say, for example, that I have to do this act, but this act is going to lead me to, for example, not be able to do this other obligation that I have. So what do I do? Give as much information as you think is relevant as possible, and then you will get a more precise answer. The Imam says, you have been made the doctor of your own selves, the doctor of your own souls. وَبُيِّنَ لَكَ الدَّاء. And you have also been given the understanding of your illness. So when you look in your own soul, you should take account. What is the problem I am facing right now? Take account of our lives. Am I getting angry too quickly? Am I constantly depressed? Am I, for example, in a state of anxiety and constantly unclear about what I should do? Take account of your soul and yourself. And then you can try to figure out the answer. Try to figure out the cure for your illness. This is on the level of ourselves. The Ahlul Bayt then tell us as well that when you are interacting with other people, you should also understand the context in which you are dealing with that person. Imam Ali, he has another beautiful hadith. He says, لَيْسَ الْحَكِيمُ مَنْ لَا يُدَارُ مَعَ مَنْ لَا يَجِدُ بُدًّا مِنْ مُدَارَاتِهِ. There's this principle in Islam that you have to be lenient with other people in your life. You have to be good and kind towards them. The Imam says, a hakim, a wise person, is someone who is lenient and is kind towards those people who he does not find any way but that he has to be lenient with them. Leniency sometimes means just being kind and compassionate, but sometimes it means to figure out what is the capacity of that person. So for example, that person might not be able to take my criticism very kindly, and so I might withhold my criticism. Sometimes that person might be willing to accept my criticism, and so I might give them that criticism, and so on and so forth. Understand where that person stands. I want to give you one example from the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. The Imam says, and I have mentioned these words from Amir al-Mu'mineen in the past few nights. There is this idea that don't be confused or deceived by this world. Try to stay away from this world and its deception. The Imam, he has many of these ahadith, but one hadith in particular is sometimes kind of confusing for us. It is said that in one occasion, after potentially the battle of Jamal, or in another occasion, the Imam hears someone criticizing the world, saying that this world is so evil and is full of difficulties and all of this chaos and so on and so forth. And then the Imam, he hears this and he responds. On the one hand, the Imams tell us that understand the context of your own soul. Figure out where you are on your journey. Are you open and willing and energetic towards doing worship? On the other hand, the Imam looks to his audience, trying to figure out where they are. And then he says, أَيُّهَا الضَّامُّ لِلدُّنْيَا, O you person who is criticizing this world, and you're constantly up in arms about how the world has deceived you, how it has wronged you, and so on and so forth. You let yourself be deceived by the world, and then you come and criticize it. أَنْتَ الْمُتَجَرِّمُ عَلَيْهَا, are you the one who has a case against the world, or is the world the one who has a case against you? And then the Imam says, إِنَّ الدُّنْيَا دَارُ صِدْقٍ لِمَنْ صَدَقَهَا وَدَارُ عَافِيَةٍ لِمَنْ فَهِمَ عَنْهَا. The world is a world that is sincere for a person who is sincere towards it. And it is a place of well-being for a person who understands it. It is the place where the beloved of Allah do worship of God in this world, where the angels of God descend and they bring the revelation of God. And so how dare you criticize the world when it has given you all of the information and all of the knowledge you need, all of the wisdom that you are supposed to take from it? Have you not seen your parents? Your father, he falls ill, and you bring all of the doctors to help him, and yet no one can help him, and he passes away. Your mother lies on her deathbed, and she passes as well. And just because you don't take counsel and advice from the world, now you come and criticize it. On the one hand, the Imam, he himself criticizes this world. He says, don't be deceived, to even his own sons. On the other hand, he looks at a person who is deceived by the world, who does not take the counsel of the world, and then he says, don't blame this world, blame yourself. In other words, the Imam understands the context and the intentions of that person, and then he responds. And so a lot of times, these ahadith that we think are in conflict, in fact, the Imam is appropriately answering to what that situation and that person requires. And that takes me to my final point. That when we look at the life of Amirul Mu'mineen and all of the decisions that he makes, these are not simply decisions that are based on principles, but these are decisions that a person like Amirul Mu'mineen, a person with the taqwa and the tawakkul and the aql and the ilm of a person, importantly, a person like Amirul Mu'mineen can only make. When we look in the life of Amirul Mu'mineen, he criticizes the actions of the Muslims after the death of the Prophet of Allah. The Prophet had mentioned, and this is a hadith shared by all of the schools of Islam, that one day Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi he is surrounded by his companions, and he tells them that there's going to be a person amongst you, man yuqatilu ala ta'wil kama uqatilu or kama qataltu ala tanzil. There's going to be a person amongst you who is going to fight and is going to be fought with over the ta'wil of the Quran, just as I was fought with and people fought with me over the tanzil of the Quran. The Prophet brought the principles of Islam, and then this person is going to be fought over the underlying understanding and the ta'wil of those principles, the implementation of those principles for the believers. And this was amongst the companions. So one of the companions, he stands up and he says, am I that person? And the Prophet says, no, sit down. The next person, he stands up And he says, the second person. He stands up and he says, I am that person. I am sure I am that person. And the Prophet says, no, you can sit down as well. And he says, that person that I am referring to and that I'm talking about, he is the one who is sewing his shoes. In other words, the person who does not care about this world more than the shoes, the torn shoes on his feet. And then they looked and they saw that it was no other than Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali. Sometimes this is interpreted by some people as meaning that Imam Ali was fought over and by the Khawarij, those people who tried to understand Islam, but they were too fervent and they were too extremist, those caricatures, big heads, a lot of ibadah but no understanding. But Amir al-Mu'mineen, he does not just criticize the Khawarij. He says that right after the Prophet's death, my inheritance, the khilafah that the Prophet had given to me by the grace and by the command of Allah, it was taken by the Muslims out of my hands, by individuals out of my hands. And they fought over it amongst themselves, one tribe with another. And I had to just stand there. My options were two. Either I go and fight when my arm is injured and I don't have any support to fight with those people, or I could stand back and I could be patient, a patience that wears a man thin and weak, that makes the young old. And then the Imam says, in that moment I had to decide. And I decided to be patient. After the Prophet's death, I relinquished my rights towards the Khilafah. وَفِي الْعَيْنِ قَضَى وَفِي الْحَلَقِ شَجَى. And in my eye there was a thorn. It was the most difficult thing for me. And it was as though there was a bone in my throat. And yet I had to be patient. Ara turathi nahba. And I saw that my inheritance, that rights that the Prophet of Allah had given to me, that was being taken away and that was being squandered by these people. In other words, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he saw the situation and the context, and he saw that either he has to fight with the few companions that he has, and maybe some of these companions will be killed. There were companions that Amir al-Mu'mineen had that had surrounded and had come into his house, but they were few. And on the other hand, there were enemies at the gates of Islam. The Romans that the Muslims had fought, these people were trying to come and destroy this fledgling community of the Prophet of Allah. And then on the other hand, Amir al-Mu'mineen saw that if he made this decision to fight, then all of those difficulties and those trials that the Prophet of Allah had gone through, all of those would be squandered as well. And so Amir al-Mu'mineen made the decision. He understood his context, understood the situation, understood who he was dealing with, that these people were not going to stop at any length. They were going to do what they wanted, even take away the inheritance of Lady Fatima. And he made the decision, the very difficult decision, to stand down. For over 25 years, Amir al-Mu'mineen stood down, until a moment came when the people were coming towards Amir al-Mu'mineen, and there was no stopping them. And that is when Amir al-Mu'mineen took up the Khilafat. And we notice the same type of decision making for all of the Ahlul Bayt. They understood the circumstances that they were dealing with, where they were and where the Muslims were, and then they made their decision. It was not just a computer process that you could calculate and reach to a conclusion. The Ahlul Bayt, they understood the context. They understood the circumstances. And then they made their decision based on that. And this is where we come to tonight. Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he took up the Khilafat, each and every year that Amir al-Mu'mineen was the Khalifa, one after another he had to fight a battle or a war, not with the enemies or with the non-Muslims, but with the Muslims themselves. On the one hand, those very people that gave their bay'ah to Imam Ali. They would run away from Medina towards Mecca, and those people would stand up against Amir al-Mu'mineen in revolt. On the other hand, comes Muawiyah from the city of Damascus, from the region of Sham, and he is now claiming the blood of the previous Khalifa. And he is raising his arms and using his army to come and attack Amir al-Mu'mineen. And does not just stop there. Even the followers or the so-called soldiers of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they as well rebel and revolt against Amir al-Mu'mineen. Those people with big heads, those caricatures of human beings who don't live good lives or even know the principles of Islam, they now come and fight against the Imam and the Khalifa of their time. And this is where Amir al-Mu'mineen, it is said that on the 19th of Ramadan, a night like last night, in some reports it is said that Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam hears from his father, that his father tells him that I saw the Prophet of Allah in a dream. And I told the Prophet about all of the things that have happened after he had died. All of these supposed followers and these soldiers of my own army that have risen up against me and that have fought against me. These Muslims who claim to be followers of your religion, and all of the difficulties that they have made against me. It is said that the Prophet of Allah told Amir al-Mu'mineen to ask Allah that he may free him of these people. And it is said that Amir al-Mu'mineen responded that I did dua, da'awtullah. Imam Ali is trying to tell Imam Hassan that I am preparing myself to return back unto Allah, that these are the final nights of my life. O Hassan, prepare yourself. And it is said that Amir al-Mu'mineen, on the night of the 19th, he spends that night in worship until the morning. When we look in the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen, one scholar says that at no point did Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali say, I have been victorious. In all of the wars that he fought during the time of the Prophet of Allah, and even during his own lifetime, during the time that he was the Khalifa, he never said, I was victorious after any battle. But it is only at the moment that he is meeting his Lord that he says, Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba. When he goes towards the masjid of Kufa, it is said that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he is preparing himself. And he goes towards the masjid, and then he prepares the Muslims of the masjid. And it is said that he goes and he recites the adhan to prepare the Muslims of the city of Kufa. That, oh Muslims, it is the time for prayer. Oh Muslims, it is the time to meet Allah. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen, he steps into the mihrab and he begins to recite his own salat. And it is at this moment that it is said that Ibn Muljam, he raises his sword. When Amir al-Mu'mineen enters into his first sajda, it is said that he draws his sword and he strikes the blessed head of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Again, at no other point in the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen do we have him say these words. But it is now that he has been struck and he is reaching that blessed honor of Shahada. And he is in pain. That Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Bismillah wa billah wa ala millati Rasulillah fuztu wa rabbil Kaaba. By the name of Allah and by Allah Himself and upon the religion of the Prophet of Allah, I have been victorious by the Lord of the sacred house. It is said that at that moment Amir al-Mu'mineen takes some of the dust from the ground and he wipes the wound on his head and he recites these verses of this verse of the Quran. And he says, from this dust we have created you, and from it, وَفِيهَا نُعِيدُكُمْ وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. And we will return you unto this dust, and from this dust we will extract you another time, once again. And it is at this moment that there is this great commotion in the masjid. It is said that they were trying to get Ibn Muljam before he flees. And then maybe some people were trying to come towards Amir al-Mu'mineen and see what has become of the Imam. And even the angels of the heaven, the skies are wailing now. Tahaddamat wallah arkanul huda wanfasamat wallah al-urwatul wuthqa. قتل ابن عم المصطفى. The very pillars of Hidayah and Huda and guidance have been destroyed. And it is said that when they grab Ibn Muljam and they now raise up Amir al-Mu'mineen and they take him to his house. If it were us and if it were our decision, maybe we would have said that Ibn Muljam must be killed immediately. If it were anyone else, they might have said that the retribution of Ibn Muljam must be swift and must be quick. But this is Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali. It is said that Amir al-Mu'mineen looks to Imam al-Hussain and he says, oh Hussain, if I have been killed by this injury of this man, then one strike for one strike. One blow for one blow. Do not go above and beyond in your punishment of this man. But if I am still alive, I will deal with him on my own. In other words, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I have lived a life of justice and I have lived a life of mercy. This moment of my own death is not going to be the moment that I am going to disregard that justice and that mercy. And it is said that Amir al-Mu'mineen showed kindness and compassion towards Ibn Muljam. In some reports, he asks him, what did I do to you, O Ibn Muljam? Was I not kind and just to you? It is said that Ibn Muljam, he says, I have spent so much money and so much of my own wealth in poisoning this sword, in bathing this sword with the most difficult of poisons and venoms. And so if this sword does not do its job, then curses upon it. It is said that there was still some hope amongst those who surrounded Amir al-Mu'mineen. So they called the doctors of the city of Kufa. And one doctor after another comes towards the body of Amir al-Mu'mineen trying to figure out whether he will survive. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali. He had been injured many times throughout his life, whether it was the pierce of the arrow or the blow of the sword, and many of those injuries were healed. But at this moment, one of those doctors, he comes and he does his examination. And it is said that when he examines the head of Amirul Mu'mineen, he turns towards the Imam and he says, Ya Amirul Mu'mineen, make your final will and your testament. These are your final few hours. And the Imam turns towards Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussain. Usikuma bitaqwallah. He does not talk about himself. He says, look towards the orphans. Look towards your neighbors. Be kind to them. Do not let them go hungry, or do not let them be neglected. And then a moment comes when Lady Zainab wants to speak to her father. These will be my final words, brothers and sisters. It is said that Lady Zainab, she takes this opportunity to ask her father, oh my father, I had heard from the wife of the Prophet of Allah, Ayman, that she had told me a story that was very difficult for me to bear. She had told me such and such. I want to hear it from your own lips, oh my father. And the Imam says, yes, oh my Zainab, after I am gone, you are going to face one tragedy after another. Sabran sabra ya Zainab. Have patience, oh my Zainab. This is difficult. This is a tragedy that you must bear. I am going to leave you in just a few hours, in just a few days. But oh my Zainab, you are also going to see the death of your brother Hassan, and then you are going to see the slaughter of your brother Hussain. He is going to be slaughtered like a sheep in the wilderness, and you are going to have to witness that, O Zainab. And then, O Zainab, sabran, sabra, have patience. Because, O Zainab, your tragedy and your difficulties are not going to end there. O Zainab, you are going to be paraded along with the women folk from one city to another, from one village to another. Your hands are going to be cuffed, and you are going to be held as a prisoner. Sabran, sabra. And you know, Zainab, those enemies of Allah, Shaytan himself, he is going to laugh and he is going to smile at you. And he is going to say, we have taken hold of the son of Adam and we have killed him and vanquished him. Oh Zainab, sabran sabra. Because know that Allah is watching. Know that one day Allah will give vengeance and take punishment for your sake. So say Zainab, sabran, sabra, have patience in the face of your trials. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون.
Haydar Mawla, 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 Haydar Mawla. Haydar Mawla, Haydar Mawla, Haydar Mawla, Haydar Mawla, Haydar Mawla. Mu'minu Haydar करार का मातम कर लो. Mu'minu Haydar करार का मातम कर लो. Mu'minu Haydar करार का मातम कर लो. मोमिनो हैदर करार का मातम कर लो. मोमिनो हैदर करार का मातम कर محمد کے علم دار کا ماتم کر لو مومنو حیدر کرار کا ماتم کر لو مومنو حیدر کرار کا ماتم کر لو خاک اڑاؤ کہ علی شیر خدا مارے گئے خاک اڑاؤ کہ علی شیر خدا مارے گئے بازوئے احمد مختار کا ماتم کر لو مومنو حیدر کرار کا ماتم کر لو مومنو حیدر کرار کا ماتم کر لو خاک اڑاؤ کہ علی شیر خدا مارے گئے خاک اڑاؤ کہ علی شیر خدا مارے گئے بازوئے احمد مختار کا ماتم کر لو مومنو حیدر کرار کا ماتم کر لو مومنو حیدر کرار کا ماتم کر لو جو کہ پانچوں میں بھی ہے 12 اماموں میں بھی ہے جو کہ پانچوں میں بھی ہے 12 اماموں میں بھی ہے جو کہ پانچوں میں بھی ہے 12 اماموں میں بھی ہے جو کہ پانچوں میں بھی ہے 12 اماموں میں بھی ہے سارے نبیوں کے مددگار کا ماتم کر لو مومنو حیدر کرار 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 کا ماتم کر لو جس نے اللہ کے لیے دی ہے ہر ایک قربانی جس نے اللہ کے لیے دی ہے ہر ایک قربانی صاحب دل و تلوار کا ماتم کر لو مومنو حیدر کرار 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 کا ماتم کر لو اپنے قاتل کو دیا جس نے کہ شام شیری اپنے قاتل کو دیا جس نے کہ جام شیری اپنے قاتل کو دیا جس نے کہ جام شیری کوثری جام کے مختار کا ماتم کر لو مومنو حیدر کرار کا ماتم کر لو مومنو حیدر کرار کا ماتم کر لو حیدر مولا 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 اللهم صل على
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام ولك السلام وإليك يعود السلام سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على الأئمة الهادين المهديين. السلام على جميع أنبياء الله ورسله وملائكته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام على علي أمير المؤمنين. السلام على فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة أجمعين. السلام على علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي. السلام على الحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك وشيعتك والمستشهدين بين يديك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلى الله عليه وسلم.